Good afternoon, Howard Wade, Code Green, Think Tech Hawaii. My honorable guest today will be talking about Moore's Law. No, not exactly Moore's Law. Be talking about Moore's Law as it applies to the battery world. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Sam Monet, I assume the grandson or great-grandson of the painter?
Yes, absolutely. I have all the money.
And Mark Want, my colleague in the State Energy Office, he is our civil defense guy, and a lot of Sam's talk about batteries is going to concern what the batteries are capable of in the event of a civil emergency. So without further ado, quote, "The only thing that's changed is everything." We live in a world of incredibly rapid change. I referred to Moore's Law. He is the professor who, way back when, saw the nascence, the emergence of computers and said, these things, these great big vacuum tube things with small capacity, they're going to half in size every year, and they're going to double in capacity every year. And by George, that has pretty well come true. The other technologies, like batteries, are not advancing that rapidly, but how rapidly are they advancing? Case in point, latest issue of Hawaii Business, the longest article is batteries, the other half of Hawaii's future. Solar and wind generate lots of power, but don't always supply power when consumers need it. To smooth these peaks and valleys, Hawaii will rely on the latest refinements to battery technology, and goes on to say that every one of the wind farms has battery backup. And it just goes on and on and on about all the different battery applications. My favorite quote comes from Ted Beck, our boss of just a few years ago in the energy office. He's now in the free market, and he knows whereof he speaks, where he's comparing bringing Hawaii to 100% clean energy via regulation versus via the free market. Quote, "Regulation gets you into docket hell. Consumer forces are what make the boardrooms quiver." That's vintage Ted Peck, isn't it? Yeah. So 2 weeks ago, Sunday paper, upgrading solar PV systems for energy storage, i.e. batteries. Yesterday, path to a smart home. This PV company is offering solar storage options. The major Energy Futures type of newsletter talks about plug and play, which we will be discussing. Plug and play alliances. Zigbee 3.0 has worldwide applications created an open global specification that will extend energy harvesting wireless communication to a broader range of self-powered Internet of Things. Now, I don't understand all of that, but Sam does, and he will discuss it in vast detail. Jim Carroll, one of the leading futurists, says, what is the big story, futuristic story for 2016? Essentially, what I think is happening is that Moore's Law is rapidly coming to renewables, and he includes batteries. Big data will enable power sector to add far more intelligence to the grid, and Sam will be talking about this, and to have a far better insight into the operational conditions of utilities. Sound good, Sam?
Sounds good to me.
Yep. Germany, company called Sonnenbatterie. They are actually using battery systems to buy and sell energy to and from one another. So, enough of me. Sam Monet, the managing partner of Plug and Play Energy Systems, there's a whole variety of these storage batteries out there. And incidentally, when we're talking batteries, we're not talking little flashlight batteries. We're talking batteries that are anywhere from, say, size of a small refrigerator for a home to, say, a 40-foot Matson truck or Matson container that just holds nothing but batteries. That's the scale that we're talking about. So, and Sam's variety of battery is sodium nickel, and I bet he's going to tell us why sodium nickel is good. And we do have a PowerPoint presentation, so if we could get rolling on that one. And take it away, Sam.
Well, Howard, thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure being here, and I'm not an expert in batteries. I know a little bit about batteries, but we have some experts in our company that are engineers and who understand these things really well. First of all, batteries are the key to the future grid. Without battery storage, the grid is not going to be able to go 100%. It's renewable. It's just not possible. So we all better get used to it, and batteries need to be safe.
Yep.
If your battery is combustible, you don't want it sitting under your bed or in your garage. If a utility scale battery, a 1 megawatt battery that's in, say, a 20-foot container is combustible, you don't want it in a residential neighborhood. So part of the problems with batteries is that some of them are unsafe. Now, the screen that we're looking at right now, that's the Oahu grid right now. It's a dumb grid. Okay, there's no batteries on it, actually.
And by grid, we mean the way that Hawaiian Electric distributes power throughout Oahu.
Yes, you can see that the wind is out in Kahuku. And actually, the batteries that were in place out there, they were lead acid batteries, and they caught fire a couple of years ago. And so the Hawaiian Electric allowed the developer to go to capacitors, which don't do the same job as the battery. However, it's better than nothing. And so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to figure out a way to turn that dumb grid into a smart grid using distributed energy resources, DERs, as they're called. So a distributed energy resource, or a DER, is a small-scale generating and storage facility, usually about 10 megawatts or less. And this screen right here shows what Oahu could be with DERs located in remote areas like Haleiwa, Makaha, Kahuku, Hawaii Kai, Halemanu in Wahiawa, Manoa at the University of Hawaii in that area, and even at Lagoon Drive or Waikiki. So if you distribute battery storage to all of these locations, not only will you smooth the grid, but on a public safety scale, let's say that the hurricane comes through and does what it did to Kauai, in '92. And by the way, I was there on Kauai in '92, and I saw what happens. Everything gets knocked down. They bulldoze all of the power lines to the side of the road to clear things for public safety cars and things like that. And then eventually they get to restoring the grid. So if you live out in Makaha, you'll be last. If you're in Hawaii Kai, you'll also be last on the schedule. And so we're going to be looking at ways to turn our Oahu grid into a smart grid using our batteries that we sell and install
incidentally,
and plug and play.
Hurricane, it's not, you heard it from me first, it's not if, it's when. We dodged how many hurricanes, Mark?
15.
15 tropical
last
cyclones
year.
were in the Central Pacific Basin this season.
And this is way before hurricane season, but what's happening near the equator as we speak?
Is El Nino.
El Nino, and the first hurricane has already developed.
Polly. Polly is
Polly, yeah.
actually might become a hurricane later on today, and it's generating waves on the South Shore right now, which was really good for me this morning. I got some waves before coming here, and you know, as a competitive surfer and sailor and a surfer, the first thing I check every morning is the waves and the wind. And you know, we're having fewer trade wind days. We're having much fewer trade wind days, and the doldrums are expanding. So.
Yeah, El Nino is supposed to be with us this year again.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
anyway, hurricanes will come. So are we ready for our next slide then?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a really neat site, okay? This is put up by Blue Planet. It gives you real-time data as to how much power is being produced by various sources here in Hawaii on a minute-by-minute basis. And I took this screen yesterday afternoon at about 4 o'clock. And lots of squiggly lines, some straight lines, but basically the gray line is coal. And coal keeps generating at a fairly constant rate. Then we've got PV, which is the yellow. And you can see that it generates at around noon, and it's up and down, which is what PV does when the clouds come over and things like that. Then you've got some biofuel, that's the green line, and at 6 in the afternoon till around 10 at night, we have a spike, and that's when biofuel kicks in. And it comes up and it tapers off and it runs a little while, and then it goes into what we call spinning reserve. It just sits there. And the top brown line, that's oil. And so we use oil to modulate all of these other renewable resources. So when PV is operating, oil shuts down a little bit, and then when as demand increases, oil kicks in, and as demand decreases, oil is reduced.
And what we're trying to do as a state government is bring electrical generation to zero oil, zero fossil fuel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of our problems is that, you know, we're contributing to greenhouse gases, although not as much as, say, China and North America, but, you know, we're using coal. I mean, why are we importing coal when we have more sunlight than any other state in the nation, okay? And one of the problems with wind, and I like wind as a renewable resource, however, in the last 30 years, we've had 23% fewer windy days.
Yep.
And we're having less and less wind. So wind might not be Hawaii's best answer.
Yeah, we've got the farms up there. We certainly use it. But
absolutely, yeah. But are they producing what they should be producing? I'm not sure.
So what do we have up here now?
Okay, so this is our plan for the DER. See, a DER, distributed energy resource, is built around a battery, a large scale storage battery. And our 1.4 megawatt battery is housed in a 20-foot container. The other technologies are all housed in 53-foot containers. They also have auxiliary heating and cooling systems. Our system does not require that. And so our batteries will take the PV and the wind and store it, and will also be charged off the grid. And our energy cloud will manages all of this. And so we feed this energy into the grid at various locations around the grid, and that's what a distributed energy resource is.
Yeah, and it's all back and forth, back and forth. The utility has computers which are communicating with these computers, and I think it's an instantaneous communication.
Yes.
Say a cloud passes, battery goes up, sun comes out, battery goes down.
In the best case scenario, that's the way it works. Yes, and you know, actually the systems that we've been using have been vetted in Europe over the last 20 years, so it's not rocket science, and it's not new. And as a matter of fact, I have a cell phone here that was monitoring one of our power plants on the mainland, and I'll crank it up later. But anyway, Our company and our partners have been monitoring and controlling power plants off of cell phones since 2002.
Spooky
So,
stuff.
yeah.
On that cheery note, we need to take a break. We'll be right back. Code Green, Think Tech Hawaii, Sam Monet. Back in a minute.
Hi, my name's Hillary Weinberg. I'm the host of The Whole Gamut on Think Tech Hawaii. See us live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. or on our YouTube channel to hear us talk about world affairs from Hawaii and beyond. See you then.
Okay, I'm Jay Fidel, that's Ray Starling. We co-host a show called Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, every Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m. It's really interesting. You know, Ray has a way of unzipping these guys. He asks them these questions and all this stuff tumbles out, and we find out stuff we would never know about without Ray's questions. Thank you, Ray.
You're welcome, Jay. I'm very pleased to be your Ed McMahon every Wednesday at 4 o'clock here on the internet. So you can join us and see what's happening in the energy world, and there is a lot going on. So join us every Wednesday at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, come around, be energized, right here on Think Tech. Aloha.
Good afternoon again. Howard Wig, Code Green, Think Tech Hawaii. Sam Monet, Managing Partner, Plug and Play Energy Systems, and Mark Want, the Civil Defense guy, or let's call you Civil Defense Project Manager. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
For the State Energy Office, my colleague. Sam, where did we leave off here?
I don't know. Let's see where we left
Yeah.
off. Let's get a new screen up and see.
Yeah.
And this again, this is that same screen, I think. Is this the same screen? Okay, here's demand response. We also do fine-grained demand response systems. They're called ADRs.
Now, what is a fine-grain demand response system? I bet
Okey-dokey.
not even Mark can answer.
All right,
Yeah.
okay, I'll try to be quick on this. Most DR systems, they're either shut you down or open you up. In other words, they open or close the circuit.
Yeah.
And most of them are not bidirectional controls. In other words, the utility can't do it by long distance.
Precisely, yeah.
Ours can be done, our systems the circuits can be opened and closed long distance. And not only that, but we use, and I'm going to let you know that, and our competitors know this too, we use RTUs, remote terminal units, to fine grain the PV from panel to panel, or string to strings. We can cut it off at strings. So if you have a system and the utility only wants to shut off a part of your production, that can be done too.
Yeah.
So we call that fine grain ADR.
The very simple analogy, inadequate, but I would analogize a light switch on and off versus a very high quality rheostat.
There you go.
Can manipulate things
There you
exactly
go.
as you want.
Yep. That's exactly it.
So-
Okay, so smart grid management software. Yeah, we have been monitoring our power plants in California since 2002 using an energy cloud and cell phones. And I was just showing Howard and Mark how my cell phone can open and close the circuits and actually operate a power plant in California.
From here.
From
Yeah.
from here. I don't know if you could see this right here.
No, I can't even see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not allowed to touch the buttons. That's way beyond my
But he
grade.
could, if he did touch the wrong buttons, bad things might
They
happen
would
in
shut down the
California.
power plant and we'd
Yeah.
all be in trouble.
Yeah.
So anyway, so these are some of the batteries that have been installed around the world that use our technology. This is a battery located in French Guiana, very hot tropical place in the middle of nowhere. You see our 20-foot containers, that's a 1.2 megawatt battery. They come in 1.2, 1.4, all about the same size, depending on what kind of power range you want out of that battery. These batteries can also be stacked. They can be stacked one on the other. So here's one in the Maldives. Again, this is the middle of nowhere. It's a resort. This is, again, a one megawatt battery. And so these batteries are well vetted. They're designed for hot, remote areas where you might have a lot of salt. And so it's something that's been done for a while. This one here is also in Europe. It's in Sardinia. And again, these are 4 of our battery units putting out about 6 megawatts of power. They come in a 20-foot container. You roll them up on a truck. You offload it. You put our power control system in place and connect it to the grid or your PV and plug and play, rock and roll. So yeah, then, oh, this one I like. This is a bivouac. It's on the top of Mount Blanc, and it's at 8,000 feet. It's a little cylindrical cottage designed by some Italians. It's really cool. It has a PV on the roof. It has a battery storage system and communications module. So when people want to spend the night up there on Mont Blanc, they spend the night in this thing. And that just shows you the range in which you can put our battery storage systems from the top of Mont Blanc to French Guiana, or islands in a salt environment. So, yeah,
which we have.
They're safe
And
too. These batteries are non-combustible. You can shoot them with a 50 caliber machine gun, drop them from helicopters,
And
all
speaking
that
of which,
stuff.
I believe they've been deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
U.S. military has been using them.
Mhm.
Oh, and here's that screen. I guess, yeah, they're safe to be installed. They're like I say, they've been vetted by the military in Iraq 1, Iraq 2, and now in Afghanistan. So this is not new, untested technology that's going to require a lot of testing and a lot of that kind of stuff. So we're ready to install these systems right now here in Hawaii. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to get our foot in the door at HEI, and maybe someone out there will help us. We'll see.
Well, you've got some competition, but my attitude is let's try a lot
Exactly.
of different things, yeah, and
I
let
say
the
bring it
marketplace-
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd like to get in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we want in the game. Yeah.
And I'm sure Mark would drink to the fact that you have really rugged, reliable batteries. We can have a horrible hurricane, and these things are going to continue ticking.
Yeah, I look at it and think how the application in an isolated location, non-connected to a grid, how, when you look at a place like an island-wide grid like on Oahu, what advantages does the system have when you already have power in these, you mentioned Kahuku or Hawaii Kai or the locations that are further away from the central generation plants. They're already connected with electricity, so what are the advantages to a DER system in a location like on Oahu?
Well, to go to that, again, my model is Iniki on Kauai. The first thing that the military does when they get in there is they bulldoze everything off the road to clear off the roadways for trucks and other things to come in with food and this and that. And so they push all of the power lines off to the side of the road, all the broken poles and homes and things like that. And then because it's a centralized system that we have right now, everything starts from the center out and moves to the outlying areas. And eventually the power lines are restored to Princeville and to the south end of the island. Well, here on Oahu, everything's centralized again. It's all down there and you have a plane. And as a matter of fact, when I was a kid, one of my first jobs was with Hawaiian Electric working in the Kahe power plant. So I know everything there is to know about fossil fuel generation, okay? I worked on the turbine gang over there with Joe Ayao and overhauling turbines, and so I have a hands-on knowledge of how this thing works. Anyway, when everything's centralized like that, and if the power all of the power lines are down out to Makaha, say, Makaha is going to be one of the last places to get any power. That's going to be concentrated first around the power plant, and then of course downtown Honolulu, Waikiki, most likely Hawaii Kai, and Makaha, North Shore, and these other areas are going to be the last. But even Hawaii Kai is going to have a problem too, because you're at the end of the line. So, the first thing that a DER does is it says, okay, we're going to decentralize our power and our storage, and we're going to manage these systems around the battery and the PV that's in that area. So let's say that, and we're going to go into this in some of the later slides, but let's say that again, I'm going to use the Makaha system. So you're out in Makaha, you have some PV out there, you have a battery and a DER and a little microgrid or a mini grid out there, and all of the power lines to Kahe are down. And so the battery storage system out there operates, helps to operate the public services, public safety in the event of a hurricane. You can operate street lights. You can power that battery up with existing PV. If there's any PV left running out there, it gets restored. So before the Ewa Nui or the Ewa power plants get up and running, Makaha is going to have its own little system operating.
Yeah, that's enough power to take care of the essential services.
Essential services,
You want your police to have power, you want the medical people to have power.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In that scenario, if the distribution lines are down and you have a DER system, a little microgrid there, how does the power get from the batteries out to that, that facility, that critical facility that you're trying to power?
Well, instead of restoring power from the center, the utilities can send crews out to the DERs and start restoring power around the DER. So power is being restored at the center, power is being restored at the DERs, and as the DERs and the center start getting closer together, they all become the grid again. So instead of everything starting at the middle and, let's get things started at both ends.
Yeah, I'm thinking as I'm visualizing the Waianae Coast there, in addition to police, medical, the other thing you might want to bring up really quickly is a convenience store and a gas
All of
station.
that, yes.
Yeah, because people still need to eat. The storage
Freezers, refrigerators, water pumping, all of those things.
The gas station requires electricity to pump the gasoline up.
Part of the problems with service stations that they found on Kauai was that they couldn't use portable generators to pump service stations because of the insurance liability problem with the fuel storage and these little generators and crazies out there sometimes trying to operate them. And another problem that they had was that that without the utility being restored, all this gas is underground and nobody can get to it. So if you have utility scale, utility grade services to the service station, most likely they'll be able to pump under their current insurance.
Good example.
So that's the big. That was the big problem on Kauai.
And on that cheery note, we need to take our final break. Think Tech Hawaii, Code Green, back in a minute.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the host of Center Stage here on Think Tech Hawaii. Center Stage airs every Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and of course you can check out our archives on YouTube or on Think Tech Hawaii anytime you like. Why should you do that? Because this is an arts show that I believe is making a difference in lives. We talk with artists of various ilk. We talk with painters and writers, playwrights, novelists, poets, sculptors, dancers, you name it, directors, actors, of course. And we don't only talk about what people do, but we talk about how they do it. And my favorite part of the conversation, we talk about why they do it. And it's really common on this show to hear people say, wow, I didn't think about it that way. And it's very common to hear people afterwards who have seen the show say the same thing. And I hear all the time that people are inspired by the conversations that we have. So why don't you join us and be inspired too? That's Center Stage on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. We'll see you center stage.
Good afternoon for the third time, Howard Wig, Code Green. My guests today are Sam Monet, managing partner of Plug and Play Energy Systems, has to do with batteries, and Mark Want, my colleague in the State Energy Office. He is the, how about civil defense guru? That sounds pretty good.
Or more technically, energy emergency planning analyst.
That's what I was trying to avoid there. Yes. So we've only got 15 more minutes, so why don't we need to wrap things up? I think you have some examples of, no,
yeah,
here's the
okay,
hurricane.
well, this
Yes.
screen first shows what happened last summer. Lots of tropical storms and depressions and a few hurricanes. And what the really frightening part is that they're all going north of us when they used to go south, okay? And even with the El Nino global warming, is going to create that environment for a long, long time. As a surfer, I mean, there were some days I paddled out and the water was so warm I was getting exhausted in the water just from paddling the heat. And
I had a friend who
records, it's around 3 to 5 degrees, was 3 to 5 degrees warmer this summer. And we had 50 record-breaking heat days around the state. So for all of those folks out there who think it's not happening, you need to take a look. You know, as a surfer, I see it, and as a sailor, I see the wind problems. And so
Mark, maybe you can explain the correlation between warm water and hurricane generation?
No, not exactly. But actually, warmer water actually aids in the development of tropical cyclones. So it's one of the components. You need a certain amount of wind, certain ocean temperatures, a certain amount of moisture. But yes, the warmer temperatures actually, like was mentioned, that allow these systems to move into latitudes up toward Hawaii closer, and you see even later in the season, so the season will tend to stretch out more. There'll be more systems coming through. But I'm not a meteorologist.
But there is that correlation. I remember being in South Florida at a beach, and I went into the ocean, and I said, God, am I in a bathtub or in a sea? It was so much warmer than it is here in Hawaii.
one of the thresholds is about 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So there are a lot of sites on the internet that'll show you how hurricanes develop, and it's really kind of neat to see. Anyway, they're frightening, and they're not the kind of things you want coming over your home. So here, this is Makaha. This is the existing substation at Makaha.
And you might explain what a substation is.
All right, a substation is where Hawaiian, if you looked at the first graphic that we had on there with a dumb grid, well, not this one, but there was a dumb grid graphic where it showed substations and 138 kilovolt power lines, et cetera. Well, this is one of the substations where power comes in from Hawaiian Electric, it comes here and it gets dispersed into the neighborhood. You have transformers and things like that that step down the power. But anyway, so here are some slides of some substations. This is the one out in Haleiwa. What we would like to do is we'd like to put about 4 of our batteries out there to smooth the wind energy that's coming out of Kahuku. All right, and then redistributing that energy back into the Haleiwa and the North Shore community. So there's so much room out there at this brand new substation. I mean, we'd love to have the opportunity to do what the wind companies were supposed to do, is put battery storage onto their systems. So we'd like to do that one. This one here is Lagoon Drive. Again, another substation that there's a lot of room there to put our batteries to. And if you have a battery storage at Lagoon Drive, all of the street lights and water pumping stations and everything else that are connected with the utilities and public safety in the airport area would also be functioning off of our battery storage system. So I'm just showing you that right now there's plenty of room on the existing grid at the substations to put our batteries in there. They're safe, they're reliable, they're tested. Our energy cloud systems have all been vetted. Our smart meters are all done. And so this one here is out in Wahiawa. Okay, so Wahiawa is in the middle of the island. They'll be one of the last people to get power too. And so there's plenty of room right there at the Wahiawa substation to put in battery storage. So there's no excuse for it. Here's Evanui. Hawaiian Electric put out an RFP for 200 megawatts of battery storage. We responded, and to our surprise, they gave the contract to another company that only came in with an 80 megawatt solution. And they haven't really finalized things yet. I think there's a problem with some of the safety issues in their batteries, but we could put in 80 megawatts right on this site right here tomorrow. So that would take care of that problem in the Eva Plain and with very quickly and easily. So unfortunately, we didn't have a chance to do that one. Here, this is Honeywell. This is in Manoa next to the University of Hawaii. We like this one. This is there's not a lot of room yet there, but we could stack 2 units in there because our batteries can be stacked. So we could get something in there. The next screen, I think the next one, okay. This is Iwalei, downtown Honolulu. We could put a few batteries in there, and that would help to power some of the systems in downtown in the case of a hurricane. Street lights, water pumps, and things like that, sewer systems, etc. So that's plenty of space available right there. And, give us the contract and we'll do it. And then this is the one I like, Waikiki.
Yes.
The economic engine of the 50th state. And right here is a vacant lot in Waikiki that's been vacant since day one. And this lot belongs to Hawaiian Electric. There's no substation in Waikiki. All of the transformers are located in some of the condominium buildings, and so when there's a shortage, elevators go down and things like that. But anyway, we think that we could put a substation right there in Waikiki and put some batteries in there, and in the event of a big problem like a hurricane, we could get Waikiki street lights, water running, public safety, police station, fire, and all of that. We could get that running.
And to emphasize again, water doesn't get from the ground up to the 36th floor of a hotel by magic.
Yeah,
it has to be
power.
pumped up, and to pump it up, you need electrical power.
Well, not only that, a lot of the hotels and some of the condominiums have diesel generators, but there's a study done by the fire department that indicates that in the event of a hurricane, all of the diesel on this island that's non-military will be gone in 2 days. So even if you have a diesel generator in your condominium or office building or your hotel, and you think that your elevators and pumps are going to be running for a month while they try to restore power to your grid, forget it. It's not going to happen.
Maybe Mark can tell us what's happened to that diesel. How does it disappear so quickly?
Well, in the case of a hurricane, everybody sees it coming days out, and so a lot of people start hoarding and really sucks the supply chain dry. And so what you would normally have in a post-disaster, post-landfall, all that's been taken out of the system. And so it's a big catch-up, assuming that the tank farms at the refineries are intact, which is not not entirely
yeah.
certain because of the proximity toward the shoreline and other issues with flying object debris and everything like that. So remaining storage, it's going to take some time to get out to those locations to fill up those tanks. It's quite a complex supply chain,
Yeah,
and it's made more difficult after a disaster because roads are blocked. People are screaming for it, and then that limited amount of fuel has to be prioritized.
Yep.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to be able to get a little bit. It's usually going to be going to, fire, police,
hospitals.
EMS, hospitals,
Yeah.
pumping stations,
Yeah.
water, sewer, and so it's a challenge. There's just not enough fuel to go around. So having a backup source of power, is an advantage in many respects. So preparedness is key. Having a resilient, robust system that can withstand a shock to the system and then be able to come up very quickly after the event,
Like a battery.
is what's needed.
Or a battery system. Yep.
We can't simply drive it in from California. Okay, everything comes here by boat, and if the harbors are down, the power's down, you can't operate the big cranes. All of those
We've
systems
got
fall
about
apart.
We've got about one more minute. Do we have any more slides too?
Well, I think the last slide we
no,
had was a really pretty
we
one.
exhausted the slide.
If you want to show that one again, it basically says that we're all in this together. Okay, and we all have to figure out ways to make our environment and safe and secure. And Hawaii, this is our home. It's our planet, but Hawaii's it's an island. It's like the planet Earth out there in space.
And if we have any, is this your pretty slide?
That's the one. I like that.
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay. And if we have a few seconds, just to emphasize again that these batteries can help smooth out the intermittent nature of solar, because you have brilliant sunshine, then you have a cloud, then you have brilliant sunshine, then you have a cloud. The wind comes, the wind goes down.
Load leveling, frequency regulation, all of that stuff. Yeah, that's all part of it.
And the batteries, when there's plenty of sun and the grid doesn't need it, the batteries can get stored up, and then they can feed back when it is needed. And
It smooths it. It smooths the power.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. You don't have all of the peaks and valleys that we saw in the graphic of the real-time energy production.
And that saves Hawaiian Electric oil. They
wear and tear on the machinery too, because the machines don't like to be started and stopped and jerked around like that a lot. So.
Yeah, just like a car prefers to be going along at 40 miles an hour instead of,
And having worked on overhauling the turbines, and we're actually working on overhauling boiler tubes when I was a kid, the last thing you want to do is run that machinery into the ground. So. Yeah.
So that's called resource efficiency.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Yeah. So again, as I demonstrated in the beginning, batteries are here. And what's my favorite slogan? The only thing that's changed is everything. The utilities know this very well. Batteries are going to be coming along they already are coming along like gangbusters. Not just here, but nationwide, indeed worldwide. And on that cheery note, we must bid fond farewell to Sam Monet, Mark Want. Thank you very much. Code Green, Think Tech Hawaii. See you in 2 weeks.